And thank you to the DRF for the opportunity to present today. It's nice to actually do it in front of people instead of in front of a screen. So this project, before I actually step you through the project and some of the results, I'd just like to get a bit of an indication from the room. Can you put your hand up if you're a farmer? So about, what is it, Yanni, about 50%? I hope most of you are familiar with Dairy Australia's feeding system scale from 1 to 5, 1 sort of low concentrate levels under a tonne of dry matter per cow, all the way through to more intensive feeding, perhaps the involvement of feed pads, and right through to fully intensive zero grazing systems, which Ian and Courtney have been speaking about this morning. So I just want you to have a bit of a think about your business, and have you as a farmer, if you have, in the last 5 to 10 years, have you shifted up the scale? Have you started to intensify your system from where it was before? A few? Yep, a few. Yep. And hands up if you're thinking about going to a fully shedded system. Right, there's a few in the room, not as many as I would have expected. Hands up if you're operating a TMR system currently. Okay, so there are quite a few. We've done a bit of a survey, which I'll duck into at the end of this, around New South Wales farmer attitudes to intensification and what that's looked like in the past 5 years, and what people's intentions are coming, looking ahead. So, right, the purpose of this project. We've seen from the presentations before, these businesses involve a lot of capital to set up, and as both Ian and Courtney have explained, there's a lot of different management skills that you need to have to run these businesses effectively, and they've just touched on some of them. There's many, many more that need to be factored in when you're managing these systems, and to do it well. So part of the purpose of this project is to understand the performance of existing TMR farms in New South Wales. So we've looked at a historical performance of these businesses, historical performance, and also a social science study. And the purpose of these two parts of the work are to help farmers make informed decisions when they're investing in these businesses. So what is the profitability potential, and what are some of the reasons people are getting into the businesses, and some of the decision processes that they're going through. So to do the economic analysis, we've relied on the Dairy Farm Monitor methodology. This has given us the ability to compare TMR farms against other farm monitor farms in New South Wales. Okay, so I'm going to talk to some blank slides for a minute. So with the farm monitor methodology, we look at the cash position of a business, the profit position, and the wealth position. And we acknowledge that within a dairy business, you've got the cash. Can you pay the bills? Have you got money left at the end of the year? The profit position, we take into account cash and non-cash costs to work out how efficiently you as a business are using the resources available to you to generate a profit. And the wealth position, if we're a good business, we're generating a good profit, putting it back into the farm to develop the business or investing it elsewhere. But in the long term in the dairy businesses, we've got an asset called land which grows in value over time. However, with this project, we're purely looking at the profit position. How well are these businesses utilising their resources? Probably just ditch the PowerPoint and I'll talk. So there's some limitations with our data set. This is a small data set. We've relied on the generosity of 7 farms throughout New South Wales that are TMR farms that are happy to share their data with us. They're anonymous farms, but they have participated willingly in this, which we thank them for. The geographic distribution of the farms is from essentially the Queensland border to the Victorian border, but predominantly in the inland regions. So, you know, we've got variation in climates and resources and feed bases that they're using. And is this one going to work? No. So then the other limitation was around transitioning in these businesses. So we've analysed 5 years of data, but not all farms were fully TMR, operating a TMR system for that 5-year period. By the 2021 year, we considered them all to be TMR farms, zero grazing. And we also had different numbers of farms within those 5 years. So there's a bit of noise in the data set. That is just a quick outline of, we've got 5 years of data. That's the number of farms in each data set that we're looking at, the TMR farms, farm monitor farms, and then I've also done a comparison against the top 25% farms in farm monitor. I won't be talking about that too much today. So the physical characteristics of these farms, the TMR farms, they tend to be larger in herd size compared to our farm monitor farms and our TMR farms. They have a larger usable area, which is probably a function of where they're located throughout the state. And they tend to have higher per cow production, both on a litres basis and on a kilos of milk solids basis. And from memory, we're looking at, it was a bit over 8,000 litres per cow in this TMR data set. We might expect that to be a bit higher in this system, in these systems, where we're expecting some operational efficiencies, feed conversion efficiencies, higher genetic merit cows, but a lot of it is to do with that transition noise that we've got in the data as well. I don't think some of these farms have quite realised their potential yet. This is a real shame.
We're trying to fix it.
Cool. I'll talk while they're fixing. So, are they profitable? That's the burning question. Are these businesses profitable? And when we're talking profit, I'm reporting this on return on total assets. So in Dairy Farm Monitor, it's return on total assets managed. So the owned assets as well as the leased assets. So we're talking operating profit, our EBIT, divided by all the assets you manage to get your return on total assets. Almost there? Cool. So within this 5-year period, when the graph is able to come up, you'll see there's some trends between the three groups, the TMR group and the Farm Monitor group and the top 25 group, which is related to operating in similar, some similar variables at play, namely drought. That 5-year period included 3 really intense years of drought, which impacted farm performance. And in the 2021 year, we started to see a turnaround in season. Oh, hey. Excellent. Can you keep going through? Keep going forwards, please. Next. Okay, am I right to click? Hey, there we go. So our 5 years of data across the x-axis and our return on total assets on the right. So this is the profitability of the TMR farms over that 5-year period. This is an average. Obviously, we have a range of performances across the years. The other limitation is those first 2 years. We've only got two farms in that data set. So these 3 years here, intense drought, impacting farm performance as well. This is the average profitability of the Farm Monitor farms through the same time period. and that's our top 25% farms, their performance. We've done a whole nother body of work to explain some of the top 25% performance. But look, these the TMR farms certainly are profitable. There is a wide range in profitability. Each of these dot points within a year represents one of the farms. And we can see in the 1920 year, the variation in profitability in this group was quite large, much larger than in the farm monitor data set. And it's really explained by exposure of some of these businesses to the purchase feed market. Some of these businesses, due to various circumstances, were relying on an extraordinary amount of purchase feed. And we know by 1920, the height of the drought, we had extremely high feed prices and, you know, how's the quality as well, impacting the performance of these businesses. So this is definitely a risk in these systems. If you haven't secured your feed base and, you know, understand where you're getting that from and the quality, you do risk, you know, challenge to your profitability. Just to pull apart some of these differences within the businesses, if we look at gross farm income, so our milk income, our livestock trading profit and feed and water sales, milk income isn't higher in these businesses, and we do have farms in different pricing systems throughout New South Wales in this data set. When we compare them to the dairy farm monitor farms, they have a larger proportion of livestock trading and feed and water sales, which is telling us they have a strategic decision within their business to diversify. And this is how they've positioned part of their businesses. It's not both, it's, you know, and or, but it's something that they've chosen to do. And, you know, they seem to have larger land areas, so they've got this ability to do this. If we look at our feed costs, and so I'm talking feed costs in terms of total feed costs per kilo milk solids. With the TMR farms, their homegrown feed costs were lower on a dollars per kilo milk solids basis. Their purchase feed costs were higher, which is not surprising when they're buying more in, some of them within this data set. It wasn't necessarily the cost per tonne of dry matter that was higher, it was, you know, they're buying in a lot more feed. And then feed and water inventory change, without getting technical, what these businesses seem to do is when conditions are right and they've got a good season, they will try and put away as much hay and silage as they can to draw on later on when it's needed, as well as for, you know, that production in the year. So that's a big difference between the TMR farms and the farm monitor farms as well. Overhead costs. Overhead costs on a dollars per kilo milk solids basis were lower on the TMR farms than the average farm, partially explained by we're measuring this in dollars per kilo milk solids. So, you know, they're producing a lot of milk and able to dilute some of those overhead costs. Obviously, our big ticket item is labour costs, and within any business, we know labour costs are constantly increasing. It's not something that is going to stop increasing in the near future, I don't think. But we're looking at paid labour and imputed labour. Paid labour makes up a larger proportion of labour cost in the TMR farms, which is not surprising because generally they're bigger businesses compared to the imputed labour, so the owner-operator labour that generally isn't paid a wage or a salary. One of the areas where we were expecting to see a bit of a difference was repairs and maintenance and depreciation. Obviously with these businesses we've got a lot of infrastructure within them. However, unfortunately, at the time of this analysis, dairy farm monitor method didn't enable us to capture depreciation properly. It captured depreciation on plant and equipment, but buildings and infrastructure were buried within land and associated assets. So we weren't capturing that depreciation. That has since changed as of this year as a result of this project, where we will capture that going forwards. Repairs and maintenance costs weren't too different either. part of my thinking behind that there's a couple of reasons. I think New South Wales farms in general tend to have a lot of plant and equipment to do a lot of their own paddock work and fodder conservation work. You know, in many areas it's quite challenging to get contractors, so farmers prefer to have their own gear to do these operations in a timely manner. So you've still got that repairs and maintenance cost. Also, New South Wales farms, we have a lot of farms that do have feed pads. So with a feed pad comes all the associated plant and equipment to mix and feed out that ration. So that's part of the reason why I think there isn't so much of a difference between the two systems. That's a snapshot into the economic data. We have collected last financial year's data, which we're still analysing, and we're hoping to collect another year's data as well, which will be fantastic, because then we'll have 3 years where we've got zero grazing, fully 7 farms, zero grazing. The other component was a social science component, where I explained earlier we're trying to understand the motivations for people adopting these systems and some of the decision-making processes that happen in that journey. We engaged the University of Melbourne to conduct a social science component for us, and they've delivered us a very comprehensive, detailed report which we're still reviewing. How they did the analysis or research was through one-on-one interviews, so interviews with 9 TMR farms throughout New South Wales, and consultants that are supporting people in transitioning or moving towards TMR systems. And we also did an online survey of New South Wales farmers. Unfortunately, it was at a time of, believe it or not, floods and challenges with wet weather, so uptake wasn't brilliant, but we did get some good information out of that. And I think, Yanni, in the interest of time, I might just about wrap it up there. I've got a couple of other slides which I'll skip over, but the online survey, it indicated that 1/3 of the respondents had made a change to their feeding system in the last 5 years, and over half were looking to make a further change in the coming 5 years. And if you participated in that survey, you went in a draw to win a $200 first prize if you guessed the population of Australia on the 1st of August this year, and there were 3 $100 prizes. And the first prize, and I don't think he's in the room, went to Tim Cochran, who was probably about, 50,000 off. And the 2 other prizes, one went to, where is she? Sue Cleary. Hey, Sue, there you are. Abby Smeets, is Abby here? No, and Peter Williams from Vasey, not here either. So come and see me and I'll get you your prize, Sue. So just look to skip over motivators. We know a lot of the motivators. We're all experiencing them. Just in summary, are these businesses profitable? Yes, they certainly can be profitable, but with probably more variation in the really tough years. They tend to have a business diversification strategy, whether it's livestock or feed and water sales as part of their business, and that feed base management is a big risk area that needs to be focused on. So a quick thank you to the farmers that are participating in the project with us. It is greatly appreciated, and to the consultants who are part of the one-on-one survey, and to all those farmers that participated in the online survey as well. This body of work will inform some work that Dairy Australia, and Karen Romano will be up shortly, is doing nationally to help farmers those farmers that are considering intensification or intensifying their system. It'll help inform some of that work. So thank you, Yanni.
Thank you very much, Sheena. Nothing to put a bit more pressure like a technology failure. Sorry about that. But I'm glad it was all fixed. Thank you so much. So do we have a quick few questions for Sheena before she calls the panel for the further discussion on this topic. This is the first real data we have for intensification. So yes, we have a question here.
Appreciate that. The sample size was small, only 7 farms. In total, how many TMR farms do you know, or should there, are there in New South Wales?
We haven't quantified that. We haven't got an absolute answer on that.
So you wouldn't know the seven farms would be a percentage of the total. Would you know that?
Look, if it's a third, maybe. I did a wild guess. Ian, you might have a bit more of an understanding.
Probably.
No.
Because it depends on the definition.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places that are sort of in transition.
That's right.
But I reckon 30 is probably about it.
Yep.
And we have another question. Yes, Shane?
Sheena, was there any surprises in the data? And how can any farmer that wants to be involved go and see you, or?
Yeah, we're happy to have other farms involved. I guess if we're to bring new farms in at this stage, we'd want them to be fully operating TMR farms, because that's where our data set's at currently. In terms of surprises, I don't think there's been any great surprises. I think once, from this point forward with the farm monitor methodology, we might see that depreciation, I would expect to be a little bit more of a cost to these businesses, where we are capturing that factor with the, the buildings and other associated assets in the businesses. And after Courtney's talk this morning, and bearing in mind that we've really only got the last couple of years where we've got zero grazing farms, admittedly all these TMR farms, some are dry lots, some are free stalls and some are compost barns, but the shed costs I think will be interesting with time, just to see how they change with the impact of electricity and what farmers do to manage that in time, whether, alternative energy sources, if that's an option.
Thanks, Sheena. And just one for me, we are seeing a lot of variability in the data, in this one and all other data sets, pasture systems, AMS systems, which probably shows that it's more management than actually systems. So do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think, look, as you say, Yanni, there's variation in any data set, and the only variation I showed up there was profitability for those TMR farms. There's variation in our dairy farm monitor data set. We have really strong performers and strong consistent performers, and then we have years where some farms don't do so well. But I think the important thing is the context. Everyone has different resources and environments that they're operating in, and sometimes it's a challenge to manage those, as we're experiencing inland at the moment, and many people in this room have experienced in the last 18 months, or look, go beyond that, the last 5 years really. So that's always, we're operating in an environment that's biological, and it's not just numbers on a page, so we're always dealing with variability.
Thanks, Sheena. And Sheena's job hasn't finished yet. There's another question here. Sorry, we'll do the last one.
Thanks,
Mark?
Yanni. Mark Keller, just a quick question. Just following on with regards to the level of risk and how, I was interested to see whether you noticed how the farmers may have addressed risk in terms of the conservation of feed, in terms of what they thought was an acceptable level of feed to have in front of them.
We haven't asked that specific question, but we do have a number of businesses in the data set that structure themselves so that they try to a very large percentage of their own homegrown feed in their ration. But then we've got the extremes where it's a tricky question, and I can't say too much without identifying farms. But we do have some farms that have access to alternative feed sources, byproducts and things that help them manage that, and that makes their system work as well. I don't think there's a specific number. I think from the Victorian work, this work was done in Victoria. Some of those northern Victorian farmers are looking at having 2 to 3 years of feed in front of them. That hasn't necessarily been discussed in this group at this point, Mark.
Thanks, Sheena. And as I was saying, Sheena's job hasn't finished yet. So we have an excellent panel that she will call in a minute. But in the meantime, please join me to thank Sheena's presentation, which has been excellent.
Well done.